Did it again last night for the first time as president. There you see Barron Trump on the left in a tux with his dad, the president, and the First Lady Melania, and they told everybody listening this.
Happy New Year. We're going to have a great year. It's going to be a fantastic 2018. We're off to a very good start, as you know, with the great tax cuts and Anwar and getting rid of the individual mandate, which was very, very unpopular, as you know. But we are going to have a tremendous year. The stock market, I think, is going to continue to go up. Companies are going to continue to come into the country, and they're doing it now, soon to be a record clip.
Yeah, so he ended 2017 getting tax reform done, something Republicans have been trying to get done for 30-something years, opening up drilling in Anwar, something proponents have been trying to do for 40 years, and also repealing the individual mandate, something Republicans have been trying to do for something like 8 years. And so the big question for 2018 is, Todd, does he take this momentum into 2018? You know, what does he get done on infrastructure, tax reform? So what are your thoughts?
Well, look, we got a lot to
get
done.
DACA.
But DACA, is DACA going to necessarily be tied to keeping the government open, infrastructure like you mentioned? Don't forget about welfare reform, because welfare reform definitely provides, I think, to the Republicans a way to pay for a lot of these things. But then you get into a situation, will Democrats seize on the moment and accuse Republicans of class warfare? So a lot of issues, a lot of opportunity. And so with all that as the setting, President Trump tweeted this.
He did. Who's reading it?
Why don't you take it, Peter?
Peter, why don't you? Todd just set it up so nicely for you, Peter.
All right, let's look at the big wall downstairs. It says, as our country rapidly grows stronger and smarter, I want to wish all of my friends, supporters, enemies, haters, and even the very dishonest fake news media a happy and healthy new year. 2018 will be a great year for America.
So like nice, kind of.
He put a nice bow on 2017 with that, but some very, very serious things happening internationally that he's got to deal with today when he heads on back to the White House, including Iran, where these protests are bubbling up, and now the regime in Tehran has turned off social media as a way to stop people from communicating, stop people from figuring out where these protests are, and stop the rest of the world from seeing videos like the one that you're seeing right now.
Well, and we're on day 4 of these protests. President Trump has tweeted that the world is watching, trying to put some pressure on the leaders there in Iran. We've had people killed, and reports of, I think it was up to anywhere from up to 80 people, I think, that were arrested. But we talked to Professor Alan Dershowitz about this earlier, so listen to what he had to say.
President Trump has indicated that he will not stand behind the Iranian regime. Look, the Iranian regime is failing. The people there are hungry despite the infusion of cash. They want a change. Iran is the most secular, democratically oriented group of people in the Middle East. They have been repressed now for so many years by the Ayatollahs. If they had their wishes, if they had a genuine election, they would overthrow this regime of religious thugs and substitute a real democracy.
Well, Myanmar,
we're bringing him into this.
We're making up words.
It'll always be Burma to me.
Meanwhile, Mark Levin used the Iranian protests to hammer NFL players. I can't talk today. I'm sorry, guys.
You've had 1 hour of sleep. It's okay.
In the last game of the season, he tweeted, meanwhile, I'm going to get this word right now, as people protest under threat of death or imprisonment for their basic liberties in Iran, millionaire football players continue making, I'm not going to say the word, of themselves in the football field. So some pretty harsh words there from Mark Levin. Your thoughts, Peter?
You know, these protests are supposedly economic. Remember, part of the Iran deal was, if you guys say that you'll stop making nukes, we will give you $1.7 billion in cash. And that is what the Obama administration did. So now I think the question for a lot of these protesters is, what happened to all that dough?
Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, he's kind of pointing out the fact that, here are people who desperately want freedom, who are under an oppressed regime. And here in America, we have a democracy. We have freedom. We have the ability for NFL players to go out and make so much money off of something that they enjoy doing, off of a sport. And so I think what he's trying to say is, open your eyes and realize how lucky we are to live in the greatest country in the world when there are so many people that are living under oppression that don't get the freedoms that we are able to enjoy.
And to your point, Lee, Lisa. I mean, think about the tweeting that all the players did over the course of the last 24 hours. It's a Sunday game day. Think of that freedom that they allowed them to tweet, Instagram, Facebook, and all that stuff. During these protests over there in Iran, that was all shut down. And so just from that one tiny small social media example, you get to see the microcosm that is freedom and how lucky we are to have it. And this is just a quick little aside.
Sure.
This is a little bit of little knife in there. Take a look at the players who protested and the percentage of those players who are going to the playoffs. It's not high.
It's not high. All right.
Just well, little
the
aside.
thing, though, if this is really all about social media, you wonder if the Ayatollah watched the current American president rise to power using social media. You wonder if that might be part of the thinking behind turning it off, as others are possibly trying to seize power.
And it's going to be interesting to see, if these protests continue, it'd be interesting to see President Trump and how he handles this, because President Obama got a lot of criticism in 2009 at the start of his presidency for sort of turning a blind eye. I really can't talk that. Turning a blind eye to, similar protests we saw in response to what many people deemed and saw as a rigged election, and they felt like he didn't do anything, that he was silent. So it's going to be interesting to see how President Trump and the Trump administration handles this. But we've got Jillian Neely, and you know a thing or two about football. We were talking about that earlier. So what else is going on in the world?
I also know a thing or two about something that Janice Dean just tweeted a minute ago, saying it's the second, last night anyway, New Year's Eve was the second coldest New Year's Eve on record in New York City. You were sitting out there for hours. You got no sleep, so we appreciate you doing that.
Janice Dean is always right, but here she is very, very, very
It was 9 degrees at midnight.
Very
so
cold.
There you have it. And we will get to more on the temperatures and the weather across the country in just a second, guys. But let's begin with this. The suspect behind an ambush attack that left a deputy dead ranted about law enforcement online. Matthew Riel fired more than 100 rounds holed up in his bedroom before being shot dead by officers outside Denver, Colorado. 3 deputies, 1 police officer, and 2 civilians wounded in the attack as they responded to a noise complaint.
We've got 3 officers hit. 1 down.
All of them were shot very, very quickly, and they all went down almost within seconds of each other.
The fallen officer is identified as 29-year-old Zachary Parrish. The husband and father of 2 young daughters was on the force for 7 months after serving 2 years as a police officer. His wife says he loved this job more than any job he ever had. Friends remember him as selfless and went to him for scriptural advice. Law enforcement lining the streets, saluting Parrish's body in a show of respect. President Trump offering his condolences online, tweeting, quote, "We love our police and law enforcement. God bless them all." All of those wounded are expected to survive. 10 Americans are dead after a fiery plane crash in Costa Rica. The small charter plane crashing into the mountains and bursting into flames shortly after takeoff. Incredible video of the aftermath showing fire and broken jet parts. None of the 12 people on board survived, including a family of 5 from New York. There's also reports of 2 Florida doctors and their teenage daughter among the dead. That crash is under investigation. As promised, turning now to extreme weather and the bitter cold weather gripping the nation. Some places seeing snow and ice. Those dangerous conditions leading to a 40-car pileup in Michigan. Brand new video just released.
Just keep, oh, there's a big truck piling here. Whoa, right in front of us, down in the ditch. Whoa, here's another one another one going in.
Wow, that is insane. The Deep South now feeling an Arctic cold front with possible snow and freezing rain. Let's look at your headlines, guys. That is frightening. When you see the video of the cars, you got no control at that second.
Right. Hope everyone stays safe.
Jillian, thanks.
Jillian.
North Korea is starting 2018 with a brand new threat to America. Kim Jong-un says his finger is on the nuclear button. So how should the U.S. respond? Former U.S. ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, is live to weigh in on that next.
And a bold prediction from a top Democrat about Joe Biden in 2020.
We'll see. We'll see.
President Trump responding briefly Sunday to a chilling warning from North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, now claiming to have a nuclear button ready on his desk.
Here to react, former U.S. ambassador to the UN and Fox News contributor John Bolton. Happy New Year to you, sir. And I'm going to get the perfunctory question out of the way. One, is there a button? And two, does it matter if there is a button, or is our diplomacy policy going to be the exact same?
Well, look, it's propaganda from Kim Jong-un. This is his regular New Year's speech, and obviously he has seen the conversation in the United States that looks at possible preemptive military force, not as the most attractive option, but as an option that we definitely have to use if they don't give up their nuclear weapons program. So we need a very careful calibration exactly what the North's capabilities are. I think they've made incredible advances in the past year. They're very close to crossing the finish line, but they haven't done it yet. And if he has a nuclear button on his desk, maybe he could give us a copy of it, too.
Ambassador Bolton, what do you make of Kim Jong-un's plans for 2018, though? Because in the same breath that he is reaching out to the South Korean government and saying that he wants things to cool off enough for North Korea to be able to send athletes to the Winter Olympics in a few weeks, that it's 50 miles from the border. A second later, then he says, but I also can nuke the U.S. anywhere, anytime.
Well, you know, some people, like the New York Times, took that part of his speech to be an opening, an indication maybe he wants to talk, which is, as the saying goes, roughly the equivalent of the mafia and the police sitting down to discuss their common interest in law enforcement. Talks for North Korea are not about ending the nuclear weapons program. Talks are about getting something they want, participating in the Olympics, or, I think more likely here, buying time to cross that finish line, perfect their targeting systems, and be able, at some point, perhaps in the next year, to be able to hit targets in the United States with thermonuclear weapons. That's why President Trump inherited this situation. He's got very little time left to make a decision what to do or face a future where North Korea has nuclear weapons.
From North Korea to Iran, the president tweeted over the weekend as follows: Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror with numerous violations of human rights occurring on an hourly basis, has now closed down the internet so that peaceful demonstrators cannot communicate. Not good. I want to ask you this question, Ambassador Bolton. Is there a way that we can use these protests to benefit our geopolitical stance in the world?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to understand these protests are very different from the post-election protest in 2009, where many people believe Mahmoud Ahmadinejad won re-election by fraud. The protests back then were over who was going to run the regime. These protests about whether the regime survives or not, and that makes them much more threatening to the Ayatollahs, much more dangerous, and raises the stakes considerably. I think President Trump has already signaled a huge difference from the Obama administration by supporting the protesters, but I think we need to do more. We do not want to make the same mistake that America made before in 1956, calling opposition out in Hungary and standing by watching while Soviet tanks crushed the opposition. After defeating Saddam Hussein in 1991, we called for that regime to be overthrown and stood by where Saddam massacred other Iraqis.
Right.
So I think we do need to provide assistance. I think we can do it in several ways. Number one, this is yet another reason why the president should get out of the nuclear deal with Iran, should resume all of our previous sanctions, putting increased economic pressure on the regime. We should provide material, financial support to the opposition if they desire it. We should work with intelligence services from other countries, Saudi, Israel, to provide more pressure. There's a lot we can do, and we should do it. Our goal should be regime change in Iran.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, so coming up, violence on the southern border, the new way our agents are coming under attack.
And the secrets of the Secret Service revealed. Up next, shocking stories from behind the scenes of the Clinton White House from a former agent who lived through it all, when Fox and Friends returns on this first day of 2018 edition. First, 10 degrees. That's how cold Lisa Booth was during the countdown to 2018 in New York City. The second coldest New Year's Eve on record in Times Square. Next, 4. That's how many teams are competing in the college football playoff semifinals today. First up, number 2, Oklahoma taking on number 3, Georgia, in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. Then, number 4, Alabama will challenge number 1, Clemson, in the Sugar Bowl. You know it's going to be an exciting Final Four when Alabama's the worst team. And finally, from 2018 back to 2017, an airline taking its passengers back to the future.
I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented.
Taking off from New Zealand at 12:05 a.m. on January 1st, 2018, landing in Honolulu at 10:16 a.m. on December 31st. How do you say that happened? Well, because Hawaii is 23 hours behind. That's cool.
How about that?
Math.
All right, so in the new book, Secrets of the Secret Service, author Gary Byrne details his time as a Secret Service agent and how the Clintons, he says, destroyed the agency's integrity. In the book, he writes, how can a security agency protect its protectees from themselves, especially when the protectees continually seek to systematically destroy the protocols that ensure protection? The agency had decided to err on the side of blind loyalty, and that was nearly its undoing.
Well, so what does the future look like for the agency? Joining us now is former Secret Service agent and author of Secrets of the Secret Service, Gary Byrne. So Gary, you say that the Secret Service has failed. How has it failed?
Good morning and Happy New Year's.
And Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. The Secret Service has failed in many ways. Let's start back in history a little bit. By the time President John Kennedy was assassinated, 4 other presidents had been shot at in open cars, but they were still using open limousines. And then if you fast forward to modern day, President Obama was on a trip down to the CDC in Atlanta, and the Secret Service, the individual men and women that are doing the job, the agents and officers, are good people, but they're exhausted. And they made some mistakes that day, and they let a man with a handgun get on an elevator 3 times with President Obama, and they didn't even know he was armed. They have completely failed. The only thing that kept President Obama alive that day was luck, and that the guy didn't have malice and didn't want to murder him.
But we do want to be clear, and it kind of pings out something that you just said when you were talking about the Kennedy case, because I spend a fair amount of time at the White House and at presidential events. The Secret Service agents and uniformed officers are very hardworking people, and they go through a rigorous background check and training to get to that level. So you're not suggesting that there's any problem with the people who are on the front line. You are suggesting that there is a problem with leadership and that they may have been manipulated by some of the politicians who they work with.
Their leadership and management has completely failed. It stopped protecting the president a long time ago and protected the Secret Service. The individual men and women, as you know, I was a uniform division officer for 12 years at the White House. And I know how hard they work. And here's an example of how bad they're managed. The average uniform division officer at the White House makes between $70,000 and $100,000 a year. In the last couple of years, because of the Secret Service's poor management, some of these men and women are making over $230,000 a year. One of them made more than the Secretary of Homeland Security. You cannot keep working your employees like this. It's not sustainable. They're crushing their employees. And they have the same problem with the agent division.
Mr. Byrne, I want to get into a little bit more during the Clinton years. And here's an excerpt from your book on Chinagate, what's called Chinagate. The Secret Service knowingly allowed Chinese generals disguised in civilian clothing to meet administration personnel at the White House and log them as, quote, business guests at the administration's request so as to avoid transparency. Can you get into a little bit more about this incident and, if we have time, other incidents involving the Clintons?
Absolutely. So it's not technically the Secret Service's job to tell the Clintons or any administration who to let in, but here's how it happened. I got a phone call early that morning from the Technical Services Division telling me that the 5 gentlemen that were coming in that were from China were actually Chinese generals, and they came in suits. They came in to talk to the administration about something, and then later on that turned into another scandal part of that, where the Democratic Party was accused of doing certain illegal things with campaign contributions. But the bottom line is these guys were generals in the Chinese army, and they were brought in wearing suits, and the Secret Service knew about it, and then later on it kind of blew up on them, on the Clintons.
I don't know if we have a lot of time here, but real quickly, do you think changes will be made with the Secret Service?
Well, that's my biggest fear, and it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Secrets of the Secret Service, because I don't believe there will be. There will be changes, because the Secret Service, the one thing that it's good at is hammering its employees and keeping this false narrative that they're the best at what they do, which is not they want to be the best, and the rank and file try to do the best, but their management system has completely collapsed. Now, they have a new director that was not former Secret Service, but everybody underneath him is former Secret Service, and I'm not sure he knows exactly exactly what's going on.
All right,
And that's another reason.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Gary Byrne, author of Secrets of the Secret Service. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your book with us.
Thank you, sir. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
All right. Well, a bold prediction from a top Democrat about Joe Biden in 2020.
And 1 billion people watched the ball drop in Times Square last night. But what about the peep drop? The oddball New Year's traditions being celebrated around the country next.
Plus, is your fridge full of leftover champagne? Well, we have some creative. You like that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
The creative ways you can put it to good use this morning. Does square ball look different to you? It's a little yellower. That's not the crystal ball in New York City's Times Square. This is your shot of the morning from Bethlehem, PA. A 400-pound marshmallow peep helped ring in the new year there.
I would eat this, but then I'd get very, very, very sick. All right. In the city of Atlanta, lowering down a 800-pound peach. That's a big peach.
And a music note dropping in Nashville, Tennessee to mark the arrival of 2018. There it is.
I just want to say, speaking of Nashville, during your show, how awesome did Griff Jenkins look in that hat? If we can get that picture up, that should be our shot of the morning at 8 o'clock.
I don't know if he'll get mad at me or not, but I can't remember when during the 8 to 10 p.m. hours this happened, but he was dancing and he did a kick.
Of course.
It was amazing.
Well,
I hope we
with
have
the Rockettes, it's kind of, this is the season, but once the first gets around.
That's how Griff does.
And I have to retire for a couple months. So your New Year's pictures are pouring in as well. We got this one from Cheryl, who writes, spent New Year's Eve with the Royals. As she partied with her 2 daughters in their crowns.
They're so cute. And this is Jeff celebrating on a cruise from Cape Horn to the Falcon Islands in South America. So well done.
A lot of people there. And check out Linda. She's ringing in the new year with her family in PJs. Just the way Peter Ducey and I were ourselves. Send us your New Year's Eve photos. We will be showing them to you all morning long. And with that, she always touts herself as, I'm the most boring person in the world. But what did you do for New Year's Eve, Jillian?
I was asleep around 7:30.
There we go.
Proving my point. I'm the most boring person in the world.
I don't think you're boring.
And I'm fine with it. Good morning, guys. Thank you, Lisa. Good morning to you at home. Happy New Year. Let's begin with this headline. A U.S. Border Patrol agent rushed to the hospital after being attacked with a grapefruit-sized rock. The agent breaking his ribs when his ATV flipped, crushing him underneath. That rock thrown from the Mexican side of the border near San Diego. According to Border Patrol, agents in that region were assaulted 83 times last year. It happened 52 times in 2016. There have been more than 100 reported assaults nationwide since October. Do the Democrats think they have a candidate to run against President Trump in 2020? The ex-DNC chair thinks so.
There's only one person I can say would definitely win the election, and is a superstar who could have appeal in almost every state in the union, and that's Vice President Biden.
Well, you heard it. Ed Rendell telling New York's AM 970 host that if Biden runs, he would win overwhelmingly. Biden has become a frequent critic of Trump since his inauguration, and many speculate he has his eye on a presidential run. Stay tuned. Maria Menounos ringing in the new year with a wedding right in the middle of Times Square.
Do you freely and without reservation give yourself to Maria in marriage?
I absolutely do.
And Maria, do you freely and without reservation give yourself to Kevin in marriage?
I do. Menounos marrying longtime boyfriend Kevin Undergaro on live TV. Her Fox New Year's Eve special co-host Steve Harvey officiating the ceremony. The couple has been together for 20 years, so many congrats. That's a look at your headlines, guys. I'll send it to you.
An interesting choice to have the host of Family Feud officiate a wedding.
Peter also got married on TV last night.
What's ironic about that is he actually called her Natalie Morales, which is unfortunate because that's what Steve Harvey does. He misses names.
Aww.
3 people got that joke. All right. Have a leftover bottle of bubbly in the fridge from last night?
Well, have no fear. Lifestyle expert and chef Ashton Keefe joins us with some fun recipes that you can whip up with your extra champagne and sparkling wine. Ashton, this is a lot more imaginative than most people who just pour the champagne in with some orange juice.
Of course. Well, that's fine too, but we have 2 recipes and 2 cocktails for you if you have any leftover, which You might not, but that just gives you an excuse to open another bottle. Okay, so we're making mimosa pancakes. So this is a play on a mimosa, but we're doing it in pancakes. So what I have here is just salt, baking powder. We've got, here I'm going to employ you guys to help me. I've got some milk. I've got some orange juice and orange zest, eggs, sugar. And then
a lot of stuff that you would have in the kitchen.
A lot of stuff that you would have in kitchen. And then we're using Enza Prosecco. So this is like a $15 bottle. And then I just make it nice and bubbly. And this is going to give your pancakes lots of lift. It's really delicate in flavor, a little bit of citrus notes. And then I'm pairing the pancakes with a bunch of just like Supreme citrus.
So this won't get you drunk?
It won't get you drunk. It's just to have fun. And then you guys will see how beautiful they are. And that's your mimosa pancake. And you can have them with mimosa.
So maybe, you entertain on New Year's Eve. You want to keep it going. You want to entertain on New Year's Day. So tell us, some charcuterie you've got over here. Tell us a little bit about what we have over here.
So this is a bubbly fondue, because who doesn't love cheese and wine? And so instead of using white wine, we're using yellowtail bubbles. So this is a $10 bottle. It's really lovely. It's delicate, but you can cook with it too. So what I did here is I just took some shallots and a little bit of that leftover bubbly, and I reduced it, and I'm using 3 parts of different cheeses. So
Can we put the cheese in?
Please. So we got about half a pound. All of it.
Wow.
Well, it's fondue. So we've got sharp cheddar, Gruyere, and Brie. But you can use whatever you have on hand. It's like there's no rules for fondue.
Some of it is shredded. Some of it is cubed. That's all going in the same thing?
All going in it and just going to melt and get nice and delicious. And then I have a fondue pot there.
I wanted to give you the
opportunity.
So the best thing about this bottle of bubbles is you can actually reseal the top too, so you won't lose any of the effervescence. And then you just serve it with some crudité, and you can dip it in there, and it's a nice fun party in the morning or in the day or whenever you're having a house party on New Year's Day.
All right. Well, so sparkling sangria, breakfast martini. What is this, and how do you make it?
Okay, so we have 2 cocktails here that are really, really fun. We've got, so kind of I know the holidays are over, but we've got a nice cocktail and a naughty cocktail. And our nice cocktail, I know, right?
Which one would you choose?
There's way too much excitement for the word naughty. Like I'm an 8-year-old.
So the nice cocktails for those who are doing a New Year's resolution, we have Epa Sangria. It's a red sangria that's already made, so it's got lots of antioxidants, acai, blood orange, and then I take
Is that nice or naughty?
That's the nice one.
Okay.
That's the nice one. And I'm putting it in this big picture. So if you guys would actually do me the honors, we're going to pour about half of that sangria in here, this red bottle right here, and then about half of that bottle of the Enza Prosecco. So we're using the same thing that we use in our mimosas, so you don't have to buy another bottle.
You can do it together.
Yeah, just do it together. So that's our nice cocktail. That's our nice cocktail. So don't use all that Prosecco, because now we're going to make the breakfast martini, which is like my naughty one.
All right.
So in the shaker, okay, we can do that. That's awesome.
We're just going to go for it.
We're just going to go for it.
We're supposed to use that, though. Well, yeah.
And then we're going to do orange juice. You can pour orange juice. We've got some vodka. You can use gin, too. And then a little bit of orange liqueur. And we're just going to give that a very light shake.
Oh, I want to do that. That's the reason I was on this.
I put you there for a reason. And then I batched it because that just makes life easier when you're having people over.
Perfect.
And then you just pour it into chilled martini glasses.
So you subscribe to the hair of the dog. You subscribe to the hair of the dog. Keep it going. Bring it into the New Year's
and the hair of the dog.
New Year's Day. Okay.
That's shaken enough, I think.
That's shaken.
What can I pour it in?
Well, okay, so I batched it for us to make life easy.
Batched it.
So
You're
you
always
can do that
batching
at home.
things, Ashton.
Yes, it makes things very, very easy. And then you can just top it when your guests come over and serve it. And all this stuff can sit out at room temperature and have for like a great New Year's Day party.
Perfect. So, let's say New Year's Day, you want to make some of these things. How long do you think it'll take folks at home to make them?
Oh, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. It's all very, very
right
easy.
up my alley.
Yes, and you can have a glass of bubbles while you do it.
I like the way you think.
Yes.
So, yes. Well, maybe after the show we'll do it.
Ashton Keefe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very happy New Year now.
And I smell like booze for the next 2 hours and 20 minutes.
You do.
No Tom Cruise.
So do a lot of Americans.
All right, so coming up, actress Deborah Messing brought to tears of joy over this. That is her son sitting down during the national anthem. So is that really something to be proud of? Our next guest, an active duty U.S. Army officer, has his take.
And California has officially gone to pot. So who can smoke it and where?
Showed his face again. That's why your love keep on lifting me higher.
Does where ball look different to you? It's a little yellower. That's not the crystal ball in New York City's Times Square. This is your shot of the morning from Bethlehem, PA. A 400-pound marshmallow peep helped ring in the new year there.
I would eat this, but then I'd get very, very, very sick. All right. In the city of Atlanta, lowering down a 800-pound peach. That's a big peach.
And a music note dropping in Nashville, Tennessee to mark the arrival of 2018. There it is.
I just want to say, speaking of Nashville, during your show, how awesome did Griff Jenkins look in that hat? If we can get that picture up, that should be our shot of the morning at 8 o'clock.
I don't know if he'll get mad at me or not, but I can't remember when during the 8 to 10 p.m. hours this happened, but he was dancing and he did a kick.
Of course.
It was amazing.
Well,
I hope we
with
have
the Rockettes, it's kind of, this is the season, but once the first gets around.
That's how Griff does.
And I have to retire for a couple months. So your New Year's pictures are pouring in as well. We got this one from Cheryl, who writes, spent New Year's Eve with the Royals. She partied with her 2 daughters in their crowns.
They're so cute. And this is Jeff celebrating on a cruise from Cape Horn to the Falcon Islands in South America. So well done.
A lot of people there. And check out Linda. She's ringing in the new year with her family in PJs. Just the way Peter Ducey and I were ourselves. Send us your New Year's Eve photos. We will be showing them to you all morning long. And with that, she always touts herself as, I'm the most boring person in the world. But what did you do for New Year's Eve, Jillian?
I was asleep around 7:30.
There we go.
Proving my point. I'm the most boring person in the world.
I don't think you're boring.
And I'm fine with it. Good morning, guys. Thank you, Lisa. Good morning to you at home. Happy New Year. Let's begin with this headline. A U.S. Border Patrol agent rushed to the hospital after being attacked with a grapefruit-sized rock. The agent breaking his ribs when his ATV flipped, crushing him underneath. That rock thrown from the Mexican side of the border near San Diego. According to Border Patrol, agents in that region were assaulted 83 times last year. It happened 52 times in 2016. There have been more than 100 reported assaults nationwide since October. Do the Democrats think they have a candidate to run against President Trump in 2020? The ex-DNC chair thinks so.
There's only one person I can say would definitely win the election, and is a superstar who could have appeal in almost every state in the union, and that's Vice President Biden.
Well, you heard it. Ed Rendell telling New York's AM 970 host that if Biden runs, he would win overwhelmingly. Biden has become a frequent critic of Trump since his inauguration, and many speculate he has his eye on a presidential run. Stay tuned. Maria Menounos ringing in the new year with a wedding right in the middle of Times Square.
Do you freely and without reservation give yourself to Maria in marriage?
I absolutely do.
And Maria, do you freely and without reservation give yourself to Kevin in marriage?
I do. Menounos marrying longtime boyfriend Kevin Undergaro on live TV. Her Fox New Year's Eve special co-host Steve Harvey officiating the ceremony. The couple has been together for 20